Pleasure to meet you all. And I would say this session is better time now about reimagining education than it was originally planned. So it's good to get started. I thought I'll start with really what my vested interest in education was when I started 2 years back. Pretty much start with that story and take you through Ogly as well. So when I started 2 years back, I think I was caught with this dichotomy of addressing and running consulting deals and improving a consulting competency center, but coming back home to two tweens and telling them something completely opposite, which was to say, hey, you got to get your marks right, or you need to be perfect with your answers, and the keywords were missing if you wanted to ace your exams. So whereas at one point you are telling your teams in the morning that, hey, failures is completely perfect, and give me some more out of box ideas, you were completely reversing what you were telling them when you came home. And when you thought deeply about it, really what I observed and saw was the fact that two kids coming out of the same institution, however reputed they were, however expensive they were, there would be a variation in the salaries that they would get, right? And if you track the progress of a young learner post his college years, any which way, you could see how much differential of salaries it could be. And part of the reason was skills, really. And what struck me was that if we were so converged and had consensus on the fact that skills had to be built, the skill building journey. And I realized that we were doing the skill building journey when we have quote unquote educated a person anyways, right? And the Indian education system, majority of it wasn't talking to the future skills at all. In fact, it was conversely talking about a content push, talking about memorization as against a content pull, or the very fact that it requires logic to be able to look and leverage these skills. So that's what got me started to say that if we have to look at building these skills, and why build it when a person is made completely post 15 years of education, why not start early when he's actually getting made? And that's when I jumped in 2 years back onto the education sector. So I'm relatively young. So Manu, thank you not for calling me G. And really, so loads, very inspiring talk, Mohan, but I'll weave that conversation in as I go along. So I think where we are right now is the fact that we do have this COVID session, which is coming in impacting us. And I see this as wave one, where the political systems are trying very hard to, just keep everything in balance for a lack of medical solution. We are obviously seeing parents go and rely back on social cohesiveness, I would say, to sort of keep us safe. And what that has done is that it's actually got that appreciation greater in terms of being able to observe your own children and say that, where are they spending their time and what is going to really make them ready for a dynamic future. So we all knew the future of work story, but I think it's becoming even more apparent in the session that we are in. And that's what got us started. So when we went back and said, okay, so what are the skills that we want to be able to focus on? We pretty much went back to the OECD, the Forbes, the Singularity University. And frankly, for me, I got lucky being able to pull in the Dean of Stanford Education, Dan Schwartz, as a formal advisor to advise us on the pedagogy as we got along. And we focused on these skills: the learning to learn basis context, the ability to really be able to comprehend your world at an accelerated pace and be able to make sense out of it by thinking critically. And like Manu pretty much took away to say that if you're not able to communicate your idea, what are we talking about influencing the ecosystem around? So that's what I saw was prime. And I could see that children by very nature are curious. We tend to educate them out of that curiosity versus latching onto that. So we focused on these skills and got going and created Ogly. My co-founder is a 25-year-old IITian, and we were having an interesting time building this out. And Ogly, like I like to call it, it is definitely a platform that is AI enabled, pretty much bringing the real world to the users every day, being able to give them activities to make sense out of it. So I like to sort of say that Ogly is a platform that is going to help you build a point of view, right? Have a view, and let's make sure that you are, cutting down the time that it takes parents to rely on their natural aptitude to build the skill. Why don't we look at a structured way to be able to solve this as well? Now, when we got started on this conversation, obviously we said, we pretty much started with the industry launching a website, which gave us a lot of experience to come back and say that if you had to talk to this demographic between the age of 10 to 16 years, then you had to gamify it and you had to have a sleek interface. So what we've done, we launched the second version of Ogly this year. We were recognized in the Global Skills and Forum in Dubai last year for innovativeness, and this year as well by Business Today. We've launched Ogly now in terms of superpowers for the future, for a gamified version. And the superpowers that I sort of call back is to say that the ability to read credibly, the ability to be able to first figure out whether you can rely on what you're reading, then be able to comprehend it quickly, which is a combination of being able to master your vocabulary or your active reading, being able to absorb it, and then be able to summarize it, to be able to then use it to your advantage of an expression. So it's a little bit of read it well, understand it well, and express it effectively to your advantage, which is where the superpowers have been created. So what I can do right now is I'm going to take you through one of them, just to give you a sense of how it operates on a gamified app. So this is the first one, which children tend to enjoy a lot. It is the ability to master the digital literacy skill, and it's a fake surfer module. So just be with me on the left side of the screen. What you will see is that it's throwing an article from Forbes India, and it's asking a child whether it's credible or not, right? And as the child answers those questions, it's obviously telling him, or rather, I would say, reiterating the rules to say that, hey, you have to look at the source when you first look at reading something. And I see this becoming even more relevant in the world we are. We are flooded with so much of fake news, and gently sort of takes him through that pedagogy of saying, look at the source, look at the purpose of the author when he's talking to you. Are there some biases that you can identify? So the third screen is something like that, to say, how do you figure out whether this is speculation? Is it to sensationalize? Is it to promote? Or is it to influence you to think in a certain way? One of the things that we really enjoyed bringing in from Dan was the ability to transfer learn, which is the thing that Mon also talked about, able to apply it in real life. And that's where we sort of created modules. And this is pretty much the structure that runs across all superpowers, is to say, hey, you figured this rule out, you practiced it enough. Now, why don't you go and see in your own ecosystem, out of all the Instagram friends that you have, who's got the fake ID? So there are many activities around that which help you sort of apply it in the real life as well. Now, so it's pretty much got rules that every superpower has behind it. You enjoy encouraging a child to go up the levels, and we see often, I think they're very low level, but as you take them through the model of practicing more and more, they tend to go up the ladder of perfecting it before they are allowed to apply it in the world. And some of these are actually always evolving. I mean, some of these, like, will go on to a deep fake. How do you identify that? So it's exciting to build something like this. What you actually ended up doing is a complex topic like digital literacy has been gamified, because that's what we heard when we went to the market the first time around. Said critical thinking. Now, how do you explain and make it fun for a child to think critically? What is critical thinking? It's so sweet when children ask you and you're like fumbling to say, okay, how do I make it real for his world, right? So this is one, and another one would be to say this is crystallized. Now, how do you crystallize your thoughts? So it'll pretty much pan out like this. It'll give you challenges under a power by explaining the value of the value of being able to sharpen your thoughts. And one of the programs that we took inspiration from was, again, the Stanford Mobile Inquiry Learning Environment, which is called the SMILE program, which says it's not the quality of the answer that you give, it's the quality of the question that you ask, right? And one of the examples may be that for this generation, when they read something like this, so if you're reading an article about Gandhi, for example, it's very easy for you to get an answer on where was he born. But if I were to ask you to ask a higher question, it would be probably, what would Gandhi tweet about today, right? It requires you to understand his philosophy. It requires you to understand what the current environment is, and then have a view about it. So we sort of rank and rate the questions when children are asking them, and encourage them to answer the questions, or rather rate more questions. And so some of those screenshots that you see over here are about asking a question, or the fact that these are the rules to summarize your key points. Now you can summarize it using voice, so you can summarize it using text. And this is the second one that we see children tend to enjoy a lot. In fact, now a lot more children are wanting to write. I think it's pretty much the time that they have right now, which has been exciting. So it's a great space to be in that sense. Now, what is obviously powering this behind is pretty much the tech that we've built, which is leveraging the same technologies that legal firms are using in terms of abstraction and extraction, NLPs, or the fact that when a child is expressing a summary, for example. So if I asked you to summarize something, you summarize something for me, I would probably use a tech to see what is the ontology that is coming in together, right? I could compare the nouns, or I could compare the phrases that you may have picked up, or if it is not matching, then I could pick up the ontology that is going in the backend. So those kind of texts have been obviously put over here. But the one that I like the most is the fact that every day the real world conversations come to you. So one section was this whole superpowers that you saw, which was the center section that you see. The second is the fact that every day's curated current affairs are coming to the child to the level of comprehension that they have. So we obviously gauge for that. We do those bite-sizable tests. But every time you read something, it will allow you to apply those superpowers, right? What we hadn't anticipated, but now we're getting that from the users, is that children want to write. Children want to contribute in a community and get rated and get ranked for that. So that's one thing that we are also building out, and encouraging them to sort of keep applying what they're learning as a skill, right? So I think with the right motivation and right tools, children are anyways natural creators. What it's enabled us to do is to create that environment within the app. So good learning on that. And obviously, if I were to look at an analogy of, say, a tennis player where he's playing a match to constantly practice, at the same time develop his skills or keep himself aware. Those are three segments that we picked up for this one. Quickly, so what is the COVID world looking like? I think Mohan's already touched upon it. It's blended is going to be the new norm over here. But another thing that I'm hearing back from a lot of my stakeholders is to think about probably not as a product, but as a service, a full service. And I think Mohan, you touched upon that very well, to say that look at every aspect. So how else can you support them just beyond a online product is what we're looking at. So a lot of these weekly virtual classes where educators are able to have the conversation with children to make sense with it is something that we're experimenting with. The other thing is that obviously the surge is something that we're treating as a traffic sandbox. So you have the opportunity to introduce a lot more features. Yes, our dear parent is the homeschooling partner that we're looking for. So parents are coming back and saying, tell me what else does the future entail. So it's led to a lot of these content series of futurepreneurs, or the fact of moral values or ethics while being on digital, as well as educators coming back and saying, listen, why don't you look at, so we had MHRD come back and ask us for short stories that were palatable to the clientele that they had. So a lot of content is being weaved in that. Otherwise, we were anyways automatically curating it. A quick word of caution that I had, more than the opportunities that we are seeing, because obviously EdTech has a huge role to play, is the caution actually. So obviously this is where I think EdTech must rise to the challenge to say that how are you making sure that equity is taken into consideration. So it's very encouraging to read a lot of players who have gone on to WhatsApp videos or YouTube videos to be able to service the hinterland. In Dubai, in fact, one of the players who had won the contest overall globally was somebody who had built a platform which was on text messaging, which worked without internet. So, some of those are very encouraging experiments that have to play out, because access is definitely not being solved for. Neither was our data protection bill willing to cater for so much of student data coming online. I think ethics in AI is another one that is something that we look at, because the fact is that today, for example, your content recommendation engines automatically go and serve you the content that you may have clicked for. It leads, and it has the tendency to put you in a filter bubble, right? Or the bias bubbles that we don't realize, but our children are getting subjected to from the Instagrams, from the Twitters of the world. So ethics is something that is in question as well. When I think about the power of being able to debate virtually, it's still not the same experience. So remote teaching is still something that we have to get on and improve. You still can't throw a child to 6 hours of monologue virtual debating if you want to make it exciting for him. So some of the experiences, I think we are still yet to figure this out as to how to solve. And pretty much it, I think the point I'm making is that if anyways our kids are going to compete for the aspirational jobs, then I don't think the technical skills were a discussion anyways. The differentiation is always going to be on the future skills. So that's the big ticket item that we should be solving for, rather than relying, like I said, on natural aptitude. It's better to solve that now, and for this generation, then realize it later.
Thank you so much, Anjali. We are super over time. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But we can do 2 minutes of questions if possible, please.
Okay, let me see if I can quickly.
Can you see the chat?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries. Okay. Yes, so the target age, Paula, I'm just starting from yours, is 10 to 17, and it says that it's most effective between the age of 12 to 16. That's where the complex thinking starts to happen. For it has got to apply, is already applying to all students of backgrounds, but when you come around to higher order thinking in terms of critical thinking and fake news, that could probably be middle and above. Why not? Yes, I think a lot of kids come back in terms of launching a fake news program for adults. They've actually come back and said, I want to first share it with my relative who's sending so much of fake news. I totally agree with you. The business model is completely B2C. Though we do have tie-ups with a bunch of schools to leverage the data, but it's not a product that is for the school. It's a product that we are using schools as a channel for. Who works on the content? So content is a combination. Content is a combination in terms of tech that can intelligently curate through any content and customize it, looking at the complexity, the vocabulary for the reader's age group. And yes, I have definitely a bunch of now content contributors from Ogly that have come in. How do you measure the learning output? We obviously baseline everything that we are doing. So I would probably know the comprehension level of a learner who's coming in at level 1, baseline it, and we actually measure it at every level. So there are assessments that have been created that are measuring the learning output, and that needle movement is tracked for. Mansi loves this, and her question is, do you find that target audience values spending time and paying for the tool? Yes. So I do get a combination of reactions. I get, I get a lot more ask on more exciting content from the users for sure. They definitely appreciate the games and ask. So the competition tends to also be that not a game, right? But you still want to make it a little more exciting. Yes, so there's definitely we've have paid users, so we can see that appreciation for sure. What is in the progression path for the schools, for the tool? Frankly, the way I see it, I mean, when I see kids playing Clash of Clans or what was that he was playing? What is it you were playing? Yeah, Fortnite, and you're talking in Spanish. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't have that conversation with the kid sitting in China and saying, hey, how's it going? And let's debate about the issues that you're facing as a country. So when the kids can sort of exchange teams across borders on a game, why shouldn't they be exchanging opinions? They are capable of it. So I see that some of those progressions coming in over time.